Hey guys, what's going on? Dan here. So in today's lesson, we're going to talk about volumes, or more specifically, kind of reps and sets, and what that all means, and how you can put that together. So as always, I'm going to try to keep this fairly short and sweet, like the other videos. So let's dive straight into it. So what is volume? Volume is basically the total amount of work. So if you have a quick look up here, it's the total amount of work that you're completing in a given session throughout the weeks and even the months, right? So it's kind of all that stuff that you've done cumulatively across those sessions or the weeks or the months. It can be seen as a combination of your sets and reps completed, right? And also kind of like the amount of weight that you've lifted throughout that time. So there's different ways of looking at it, but for the most part, for the purpose of the video, we're just going to look at it in terms of like how many sets and how many reps are you doing at a given weight. Generally, you'll have periods of higher volume and lower volume depending on where you are in your training blocks. So that's one thing we'll kind of talk about is if you were doing a deload later on, you tend to drop your volume. And what that does is it really helps you recover. It helps your body kind of adapt a little bit more so that when you jump into your next months, your next phases of working out, you're going to come back stronger, having been recovered, and just able to handle more either volume or stress or just kind of stimulus altogether. Okay? So how many sets should you be doing? This is the big kind of question that a lot of people ask. So what we're going to do is we're going to aim for you guys to be in between 8 to 12 sets. Now, the big thing here, and what I'm going to write down, because I didn't write it before, is if you're a beginner, I'd recommend you're kind of anywhere between 5 and 12 sets. Okay, and the reason I would do that is because for a beginner, the main thing you want to try to master first is the technique and making sure you feel it in the muscles you want to work. And then once you kind of master the technique, that alone is going to help you really increase your strength, right? As an example, if you have no idea how to deadlift and you can only deadlift 20 kilos because your form is shocking and you've never done it before, but then in 4 weeks time, because you've practiced it and you've had a coach or personal trainer, you can now lift 100 kilos. Well, that means you're stronger, right? Because it's a new pattern. It's a new thing that you've never been able to do. So just focus on the movements and the technique and feeling it in the right muscle groups is probably one of the best things you could do as a beginner, because that's one thing that most people just kind of like completely skip, and then they get down the line, they hurt themselves, they wonder why, and it comes down to their form. Okay, if you're intermediate, what I'd recommend is that you're around 8 to 12 sets, and if you're advanced, same exact thing, 8 to 12 plus. Now, the thing that we need to understand with volume is that more is not better. Okay, essentially it always comes down to this. If let's say we were the same person, okay, so let's say I had a twin and my twin was doing 15 sets of bicep curls and I was doing 8, and we're getting the same amount of results, right? Everything's the same, genetics, recovery, food, sleep. Then it just goes to show you that you can have just as good as results doing 8 sets versus 12. And this is a thing, most people are probably actually doing too much. They're not focusing on the little things like their rest times or even their technique or the movements that they're trying to accomplish, their food, their nutrition, their sleep. And what they do is they overcompensate by just trying to do more sets in the gym. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to track your weight and I want you to start with the lowest amount of volume possible. So the lowest amount of sets. Okay. Your reps are going to change accordingly as you get stronger. But for your sets, if you can do 8 versus 12 on every exercise, you're going to spend half an hour less in the gym. Okay. You don't want to spend 3 hours in the gym. You want to try to get your shit done as fast as you can. So always start with the lowest amount of sets. And if you feel you need more, then you put more on. All right. But just listen to your body first and see how you feel in the lowest amount. Okay. So that's what I would recommend for volume in terms of sets. This is one of the biggest things that I've changed in my own workout routine. I used to do 4 or 5 kind of sets of everything the last 2-3 years. I've just gone back to basics. I only do 4. And then for the rest of my exercises, after I've done my first kind of 2 compound movements that I really want to work on, so like your bench press, your squat, your deadlift, your pull-ups, things like that, then I just stick to 3s. And then the end of my workouts, I'm actually only doing 2 sets, right? But the intent is there, the intensity is there, which is what we'll talk about later. And again, it makes my workout shorter. So what you're then going to think about after you've said, okay, cool, 8 to 12 sets or 5 to 12, depending on who I am, you're then going to say, okay, 2/3 of my workout should be focused around either strength or hypertrophy or sport-specific movement, right? And again, we're keeping it fairly simple. We could dive into more detail, make things a little bit more complicated, but we're going to keep it simple because for most of you, this is going to give you just as good results as going out there and trying to find some crazy program, okay? So all that means is if I was doing a strength kind of block and I was trying to just get my body stronger, then all I would do is just say, okay, 2/3 of my exercises are going to be in the strength realm. If I was trying to build muscle and hypertrophy, which is the word we use, then I'd say, okay, 2/3 of my exercises are going to be using the rep ranges of hypertrophy. And if I was doing sport specific movements, that would be relative to the sport. So again, that's probably again outside of the scope of this video. So if you kind of lead into how many reps I should be doing, this is going to tie into the 2/3 principle, okay? So for strength and power, so really kind of trying to get stronger, you're going to really focus on the 1 to 6 rep ranges. So again, if I was doing 2/3 of my workout based around strength, I would pick my workouts or my exercises that I know I can do pretty heavy lifts for 1 to 6 reps. And then the other third, I could do like endurance work or hypertrophy work or sport specific movements, okay? That's just a simple way of looking at it. If I was trying to build muscle mass, right? I would, and this is a big one, and I'm going to highlight it, all right, because this is where we get it wrong in the fitness industry and where we don't really explain ourselves well, okay? The reason you want to focus on 6 to 12 rep ranges is because it's the most time efficient, okay? So let me repeat that. It's the most time efficient. What do I mean by that? Well, if I was to, okay, basically what I'm trying to say is if I wanted to do, if I want to build muscle, all right, I can build muscle doing reps between 1 to 6, right? 100% I can. But the reason I wouldn't want to do that is because one, it means I'm going to be lifting super heavy weight, right? And it also means that it's going to take me longer to recover, which means my sessions are going to be longer, which means my body's going to take an absolute beating, okay? Which means it's going to hurt my joints and hurt all the rest, okay? So you want to aim to be in 6 to 12 because it's more time efficient. But what about if I wanted to go 15 to 30 reps, right? Yeah, 100%. You can still get bigger doing 15 to 30 reps. And that's actually been shown to be just as effective, okay? But again, how much time do you want to work out? Do you want to do 30 reps in 4 or 5 sets of 30s where the first 15 to 20 are basically just kind of exhausting you so you finally get to those desirable reps, which are like number 15 or 30 or 35 or 40? No, you don't want to because it's just more time, it's harder, and ultimately it means you're going to be in the gym longer. So the 6 to 12 rep range is where we want to be. But let's say, for example, if we're during lockdown, which some of us might be still, right? If you're in lockdown, you might not have the weights, right? You might not have the means to be in that 6 to 12 rep range and have the intensity be enough. So if you have to do 20 reps or 30 reps of squats because you can't load a bar on your back, you don't have dumbbells, then so be it. And that's just going to have to be a sacrifice that you make that day or during your workouts, okay? But when you get back in the gym, you just focus on being the 6 to 12 rep range. It's going to save you time. It's going to be more time effective. And it's going to be more effective probably for you anyways, okay? So that's what you would focus on for building mass. You can do all the rep ranges, but ideally hang out between 6 to 15, I would say, because that's going to be more time efficient. If you want to just focus more on your endurance, then 15 to 25 reps. Keep your rest times low, right? Challenge that aerobic capacity. So aerobic just means you're using oxygen to really help you kind of fuel the energy demands of your body. So again, that's what you would focus there. So as an example, if I was to put kind of what I just talked about together, if I wanted to focus on building muscle and having a bigger chest, following, based on the above, what you would do is you would say, okay, 8 to 12 sets a week on my chest, right? And I'm going to be hanging around that 6 to 12 rep range if I can, right? If I don't have the weights and I can already pump out 20 push-ups, then I might have to aim for 25, 30 push-ups. But if I have the means and I have the equipment, then I'm focused on a 6 to 12 rep range. So again, that could be suitable for beginners, intermediate, and expert lifters, all right? If you're an expert lifter, maybe intermediate, you might have to do 13, 14, 15 sets, but that's why you track your weights, all right? And then you make sure you take enough rest time. This is a big one because rest time obviously is going to be a massive contributor to your next set's performance, right? If you go and you do 10, chest press on your bench, if you do like sets of 10, the first one you barely got out that 10th, and then you took 15 seconds and you go into your second set of 10 at 100 kilos on the bench, I guarantee you're not going to do 10, right? You might get 6 if you're lucky. So get your rest time in. It's going to help you promote muscle building, all right? Now, as another example, if I want to get stronger, so rather than, focus on the 6 to 12 rep ranges, I'm going to use the 2/3 principle. I'm going to say 2/3 of my exercise is going to be in the strength realm. So I'm going to focus on 1 to 6 rep ranges rather than 6 to 12, okay? And I'm still going to aim for 8 to 12 sets per muscle group, right? Or alternatives to that movement. For the strength work, guys, I would always focus on saying, okay, like do variation of your chest or your bench, right? So the big kind of compound movements using a barbell, same for your squat, same for your deadlifts. pull-ups. Just do the variations. I wouldn't really recommend you do kind of like isolation work, doing 1 to 6 reps, because that's really heavy. Could be dangerous and bad on the joints and things like that. All right. And again, when you're doing strength work, you're probably actually going to need even more rest time. So 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Whereas when you're doing maybe your 8 to 12 or 6 to 12 rep range, maybe just kind of like a minute to 2 minutes. You can take more if you want to, but again, you don't want to be in the gym all day. All right. How much rest should I take between? Like I said, completely depends. If you want to get stronger and build muscle, the longer the better. If you want to build endurance and increase your aerobic capacities, remember you're using oxygen to really supply the energy demand of your body, then the shorter the rest times, the better. Okay? So hopefully that helps, guys. Like I said, we're going to start piecing all these together in a second anyways, when we're kind of looking at examples. But just to summarize, remember, for the most part, 2/3 of your exercises want to be based around either strength, hypertrophy, or sport-specific movements. If you're a beginner, you're going to aim for 5 to 12 sets per muscle group. All right. So that's kind of one thing that I didn't mention potentially, but 8 to 12 sets per muscle group. So you can download this after. If you're intermediate, 8 to 12 would be a good place to start. If you're advanced, 8 to 12 as well. Remember, you don't want to be adding too many sets. You want to try to get the best possible results for the least amount of sets, right? And that might be the exact same thing as doing 15 and 20. So always start nice and low. In worst case, you have to add more. So do that first. 2/3 of your workouts, like I said, strength, hypertrophy, sport specific. If you want to do strength power work, 1 to 6 reps. If you're trying to build muscle, 6 to 12 is ideal, but you can still build muscle in the lower rep ranges or the higher rep ranges. Just know that, again, it's not going to be as time efficient. Endurance, 15 to 25 plus. Keep your rest times low. Gave you a bit of an example, and then how much time you take in between your sets completely depends on if you're trying to build strength and muscle or if you're trying to build endurance and aerobic capacity. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. Pretty straightforward. Let's dive into the next section, and we'll see you in a bit. See you later.